Today's video dedication is brought to you with thanks from Dan Kirch. Trostani Celestia's Voice versus Daghatar, Riku and Ephara. Asked for a casual game here because this is actually my paper list and I haven't been able to actually play it in paper yet, so I'm just going to test it here instead. Not as powerful as my normal decks that I would play on Magic Online. Just seeing a Nature's Law from the 3-colour player, and they're swinging their Ravenous Squirrel in towards Ephara. Sorry, Sakura Tribe Elder for Riku. And there's a Mana Crypt from Ephara. And as you would imagine, getting their commander into play, it is only turn 2. Cultivate for Riku. And this time we get the Squirrel creature. Okay, Resplendent Angel, that's a pretty good draw. We need to gain 5 life with that to get the Angels. So let's just crack the Myriad Landscape here. We could get down Trostani and then play both of our creatures in hand to gain the 5 life for the Angel. And then again, it would be good to get the enchantment out before all that as well. Solemn Simulacrum for the Azorius player. Oh, I didn't notice that a Yawgmoth has come into play under the Junk player as well. Parallel Lives for Riku, doubling up the tokens. And now we see a Generous Patron from the other 3-colour player. They put a counter on the Sakura Tribe Elder because that's not going to be sticking around. Put one on the Yawgmoth as well, so they will draw a card here. Okay, we get into Nature's Law, so we can play that before getting out the Trostani. Both the blue players just holding up priority, unfortunately. And there we see a Crystal Giant for the player to our right. That's countered with Repel Intruders, so the Ephara player will get some creatures into play here. Yawgmoth swings in, and that is chumped by a Kithkin token. Okay, Anointed Procession pretty good, and like I said before, we want to get the Elemental Bond into play anyway before we start making creatures. We're going pretty slowly in this more casual deck, but yeah, I think we set up with both the enchantments this turn. But unfortunately Riku looking to steal that away with a Spelljack. So they're going to get 4 times as many tokens now, thanks to that and the Parallel Lives. Okay, but we get some interaction out of our opponent's hands at least. The Ephara going to counter the Anointed Procession. So we'll draw some cards here at least. And then even more interaction. A Nature's Claim going on the Parallel Lives, so yeah, no double tokens to be made this game apparently. Draw into Elspeth, Sun's Champion is a pretty good one. Now it's Muldrifter to draw 2 cards on a body with Ephara. They've gone for the 5 mana on that. Riku of 2 Reflections coming into play. Then Kodama's Reach for the Abzan player. And then it's round to our turn again. We just draw into a Bountiful Promenade, so might as well just play that out. And we'll start making our creatures here. Voice of Resurgence, I will bait the counterspell on this because we are against blue players that want to play on our turn. Not countering that seemingly, Ephara goes for Jeskai Barricade, going to bounce a creature back to hand. And they point that at the Solemn Simulacrum. So it enters, we gain 2 life from Trostani. So we'll play out the Resplendent Angel. If this lands, we'll gain 5 life. And at the end of the turn, we'll make a 4/4 Angel token. It does land, so we also get an Elemental Bond trigger, which will draw us a card into yet another land. So I'll just go for the Swiftfoot Boots, played and equipped here. We'll protect the Angel. And then we'll swing that in straight over the top of Riku's stuff, because they are at the highest life total. Drawing into yet another basic on the Elemental Bond, that feels pretty bad. Muldrifter swings in towards Daghatar. And after that, going for Wrath of God. So creatures are going to get destroyed here, there's nothing we can do about that. Sakura Tribe Elder being sacrificed, as you would assume. And then minus counters being piled onto the Voice of Resurgence by the Yawgmoth. One to draw cards, but also so that we're not left with a token in play. So Voice of Resurgence going to bring the token in. Does bring it in as a 4/4, so we draw another card, but it's about to get blown up by the Wrath of God. We drew into Celestia Charm, by the way. That's something to cast after a board wipe. Utvara Hellkite for Riku. Then it's a Sol Ring into Wheel of Sun and Moon. The Junk player is enchanting himself with that. And then we see another big dragon, a really good one, in Dragon Lord Dramoka. Okay, just more mana for us in Sky Shroud Claim. Could go for the minus on Elspeth here, but it'll just die to the Solemn, and I'd rather keep it in play as best I can. So let's just play Skyshroud Claim, and we'll aim to get our commander back into play. Well, there's a target for the Celestia Charm, Avacyn, Angel of Hope for the Flicker player. And following that up with Lavinia, Azorius Renegade, so that's not really something for us to worry about. We're not casting spells for free, and we've got plenty of lands in play. Trying to get us to block with the Trostani. The Azorius God comes in towards us. We're just going to take 6 commander from Ephara. Regrowth very quickly flashed by there. They grabbed the Parallel Lives back and put it into their hand again. And then replaying the Parallel Lives. And following that up with Oko, Thief of Crowns. Should go onto the Avacyn, and they do point that at Avacyn, turning it into a 3/3 Elk with no abilities. Alright, and surprisingly not swinging in with the Hellkite. They would have got 2 6/6 dragons if they'd done that, thanks to the enchantment. Deciding to hold back though. Always with the white border on Phyrexian Arena. And then a Garruk Apex Predator, wow. So that makes short work of Oko, blowing that up straight away. And it's round to our turn. Their dragon holds back as well. Alright, finally getting into some half-decent cards here. We get Adeline. The question is, do we want to minus down with Elspeth here? We could minus down with Elspeth, get rid of the dragons, and then swing Adeline in towards Garruk. I think that's probably a sensible idea. Does mean that we're likely to lose the Elspeth, but it deals with some big threats in the air as well. So swinging into Garruk, we will get 3 tokens, one of which is going to die to the Ephara, but we will keep the other 2. We gained 4 life from Adeline and 3 life from the tokens entering as well. Elite Guard Mage for Ephara will be a 2/3 flyer, gain 3 life, draw a card. And then turning everything in at Riku, and their small creature finishes off Garruk, surprisingly. That's a good one. A Clone Legion from Riku. But that being bounced to hand by the Ephara player. Now seeing a D-Spark going onto the Elspeth. Yeah, I could see that. I think I'd rather hold on to that. I'm worried about this Ephara player keeping 7 cards in hand consistently. 8 cards in hand now. Yeah, Elspeth, certainly worth getting rid of, but I think the damage is pretty much done with her now. I think I might have held on to that D-Spark, personally. Then throwing the Daghatar into play again after the board wipe. Okay, it's an Hour of Reckoning for us, which will blow up all the non-token creatures. So let's get some more tokens into play before we do anything else. Adeline can swing in down the middle. And we'll only keep the 1 token. Do gain 3 life from the Trostani here though. Not making the best use of Elemental Bond at the moment. Could do with getting into some of our big token producers. Not sure if to go for the board wipe or not. We're not doing particularly well this game, in all honesty. I think that Ephara has an answer for the Hour of Reckoning, so yeah, I think maybe we just go for the board wipe here, expecting it to get countered, to get counter magic out of their hand. So we might as well tap down Trostani and Adeline to pay for the Convoke on that. Alright, a Restoration Angel. They can't flicker the Avacyn because it's non-angel. Oh no, actually it's an elk now, isn't it? Yeah, so pointing that at the Avacyn, it comes back in as the Indestructible Angel. So yeah, before the board wipe goes off, we will exile a creature with power 5 or greater with the Celestia Charm. That can go on the Avacyn. They're going to need a free counterspell here. But that's successfully getting exiled, so we are going to wipe the Azorius player's board, which is what I was really concerned with doing. Problem is, we're still in top deck mode here. Can't get our Trostani back into play at this point, unfortunately. Rhystic Study for Azorius, because he's not drawing enough. Oh wow, and that gets countered with an Illumination from the Abzan player. Counter an artifact or enchantment. Ephara casting Wall of Omens for a bit more card draw. They'll be at a full grip once again. Riku of 2 Reflections coming down once more. Ugh, and it's painful. Ephara going for more interaction. That is a counterspell in Desertion. sure my opponents would have brought more powerful decks if they'd known they were going to run up against a control player like this. So Riku comes into play under their control, the Great Henge being hardcast for Daghatar. Oh wow, and that's a really good top deck. Crested Sunmare, probably one of the best top decks that we could get actually. That really enables itself with Trostani, so we'll get our commander into play here. And play out our entire hand, including a land and the Crested Sunmare. Whenever we gain life during a turn, at the end of the turn, we'll make a 5/5 horse, and the horses are indestructible. So that entering, of course, triggers the life gain on Trostani, which will trigger the Crested Sunmare itself, and we'll get a card from the Elemental Bond whenever one of these big creatures enters as well. Okay, the big tokens are incoming now. Advent of the Worm will make a 5/5 worm at instant speed. Going to attack him with the tokens towards the Daghatar player. Suppose I could have swung in with the Crested Sunmare actually. I'm not going to be blocking with that. Anyhow, the Sunmare triggers at the end of the turn because we did gain that life. In response, we see a Nyambi, Esteemed Speaker, and they bounce back the Wall of Omens as well as triggering the Seeker next turn. Okay, making some really good draws here. Drawing to Garruk's Uprising for more card draw when the token enters. Wall of Omens back into play for the Azorius player. Another cantrip effect in Priest of Ancient Lore. They get a life from that as well. That is enough to animate the Ephara, so turning in sideways here, going in at Daghatar. Then that is Nature's Claim in response to attacks. That's coming from Riku onto the Thought Vessel. Yeah, I mean, it gets rid of the maximum hand size. I don't think it particularly matters, in all honesty. I think I would have kept that in hand, to be honest. Oh, a Brago as well from Ephara. That's a pretty frightening one. We'll need to deal with that as soon as we can, I think. Riku now attempting that Clone Legion once again. In response to the Clone Legion, guess what? The Azorius player has something to do here. But before even looking at what it is, the Riku player just decides to scoop. They must have assumed it was a counterspell. It was Deputy of Acquittals. When it enters the battlefield, you can return another creature you control to its owner's hand. Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure they actually could have done anything there. They were targeting the Azorius player there, and I dare say that Clone Legion would have landed for more card draw for them, so yeah, not entirely sure why they scooped there before actually seeing what was going to happen. Daghatar into play once again for the 3-colour player. That will put an additional plus counter on there thanks to the Great Henge. They get some card draw going with that as well. Then it is Feign the Broker, which will also come in with a plus counter and a card draw. And then round to our turn. That's more card draw for us. Pretty slow card draw though. Hoatli Radiant Champion. I think now's as good a time as any to try and get that going. So Hoatli comes into play. We put a plus on her loyalty first. And then she gets even more loyalty for each creature we control. So we'll be able to get the emblem next turn. Get the Garruk's Uprising into play as well. That is going to be Trample as well as card draw. And it does draw a card when it enters. We get Intangible Virtue for an Anthem and Vigilance on our tokens. I'll swing in the Indestructible Horse in towards the Azorius player. Planning on gaining some life this turn and triggering the Crested Sunmare for another untapped one. They decide to chump with the Wall of Omens. Be surprised if they're throwing that away. In response, going for Mystical Tutor to put something on top. Oh great. And it's a Cyclonic Rift. A turn 11 Cyclonic Rift. Then before the damage step, Nyambi is going to come into play and likely bounce the Wall of Omens. We do have Trample on our horse here because of the enchantment, so we're still going to get 5 damage through to them. I just want to get some more card draw going before that Cyclonic Rift kicks off, so potentially a waste here, but I'll go for Advent of the Worm, and then we can still hold up Trostani's ability as well. Draw 2 cards, 1 from each enchantment. As well as gain life, we'll make another horse. Okay, getting into Soul's Attendant for more life gain. A Populate an Indestructible spell as well. Crested Sunmare triggers at the end of the turn because that worm did gain us life. So once again, gaining life and drawing cards makes the Cyclonic Rift a little bit less painful. Do draw into double mana with Mirari's Wake. Yeah, I don't think the Rootborn Defences is going to be as useful to us because they're not looking to blow up the board, they're just bouncing everything back. So let's go Generous Gift while we've got the chance. We'll throw that onto the Brago. Then they're not doing as many flicker shenanigans as they'd like. But it's not looking good against the Ephara player. They haven't been south of 7 cards in hand all game. And always have answers to absolutely everything we want to do here. Alright, well, I'm grateful for that at least. That is a main phase Cyclonic Rift. They could have waited for that. Yeah, they could have done that at the end of our turn to make their 2 opponents waste a turn. But going for it now, and then crashing everything in sideways towards the Abzan player, they go plummeting down to 6 because of that. And they're looking to just take us out one at a time by the looks of it. Then casting an Aetherling, so that can flicker itself and trigger the Ephara every turn if they want it to. So Daghatar along with the Sol Ring coming in once again. I think that's the 4th or 5th time they've cast their commander. Throwing out the Fane as well. And then Dust Bowl, blowing up the Reliquary Tower. Yeah, our opponents seem really focused on them not having an infinite hand size. I don't think it particularly matters. I would have taken out an untapped land there, to be honest. Try and force them to use some mana before they'd like to. At the end of the turn, they do flicker the Aetherling, so that will trigger Ephara during our turn. We draw Momentous Fall, which is useless without any creatures in play. So let's attempt the Mirari's Wake first of all. Wow, unsurprisingly letting that down, so we do have double mana on our lands now, which will really help us to rebuild. Throw out the Trostani first of all, and then we'll get down our card draw enchantments again. And now we can afford Crested Sunmare, and I will play and equip the Swiftfoot Boots as well. Then we draw into Farseek and Parallel Lives doubling up the tokens, we've already seen that from the Riku player. Trostani did gain life for us to the Crested Sunmare entering, so that triggers the Crested Sunmare. We get an Indestructible Horse, which triggers our card draw stuff. And getting to Sundering Growth and Tendershoot Dryads. Ugh, another big hit from the Azorius player, that is Deluvan Primordial. Nothing we can do about this. They're going to get an instant or sorcery from each of us. Going after the Generous Gift from us. I dare say that they're going after our enchantments here. And then Nature's Claim from the Abzan player. The Nature's Claim is going to gain us life here, so they might regret doing that. Either way, Nature's Claim pointed at our mana doubler, as we thought it would be. And the Generous Gift going on the Elemental Bond, so we've still got Trample on our Garruk's Uprising. Oh yeah, and because of the way they put it on the stack, we get a 4/4 Elephant token, which does trigger the Garruk's Uprising, and the creature entering was always going to get the Trostani to trigger as well. We've still got the Anthem effect, so what would have been a 3/3 Elephant is a 4/4 Elephant here. Yeah, so we were gaining life thanks to Trostani, even without the Nature's Claim there. We'll get an Indestructible Horse again at the end of the turn. And now buffing up their Aetherling. I dare say they're looking to finish off the Abzan player here. Alright, not taking any chances, just turning everything in sideways at the Abzan player. That might mean that they're baiting us for an Aetherize or something. Elephant token being blocked by the commander. The black creature is blocking Nyambi. So in response to blocks, we see a Stonecloaker once again bouncing creatures around. With that, they exile our Adeline from the graveyard. And they did point that at the Nyambi, so getting that back into hand once again. But successfully managing to take out the Abzan player. We have the Crested Sunmare on the stack at the end of the turn. So once again triggering the Trostani for even more life gain and more card draw from the Garruk's Uprising. Okay, Swords to Plowshares. That is usually a good draw. So now it's a 1v1. Can we take out the Ephara player? I'm not entirely hopeful, in all honesty. I'm playing Tangible Virtue first to put Vigilance on our creatures, then we can swing in more freely. Play Parallel Lives as well so that we can start getting double the number of horses. Yep, and that's a mana drain. So not going to be landing that. Luckily we're at a lot of life, so it's really just the Ephara and Unblockable that we'd be worried about with regards to damage. Let's swing in with some indestructible horses, try and encourage them to block. And they just take a hit, going down to 29. And I don't really want to play into another board wipe. They could still have Supreme Verdict or something like that, so just going to populate during the main phase here to trigger the life gain, which obviously makes more stuff with the Crested Sunmare. And then I just want to hold up Rootborn defences and other interaction here. Once again, buffing up their Aetherling. And they turn their Unblockable Aetherling now in sideways along with some flyers. We're at 111 life, so not really concerned with that. And then deciding to flicker the Aetherling, so that will come into play at the end of the turn, and we'll trigger their Ephara for next turn. Nyambi coming into play once again. We'll bounce a creature back to hand. Yeah, and that's what I was worried about. They're going after the Diluvian Primordial. I really don't want them having access to Sundering Growth and Swords to Plowshares and stuff. So let's go Swords to Plowshares onto the Primordial. Okay, and surprisingly that lands. I think we're finally starting to get somewhere. They're at 6 cards in hand. Alright, and there is Austere Command as well, going for enchantments and creatures with MV4 or greater. Yeah, I'd very much like to keep our engine intact. That is Crested Sunmare and Trostani. We'd keep the tokens regardless here, but like I said, I want to keep that engine going. So Rootborn defences, we'll give our stuff indestructible. And we will get to populate here as well. This is happening during the main phase, so we've still got an end step trigger from Crested Sunmare to keep in consideration as well. Losing the trample from Garruk's Uprising could be relevant here because they are wanting to chump creatures and then bounce them back. And with trample that would still allow the damage through, but without trample it does mean that the damage is successfully blocked. And then we see the answers just keep coming. That is a Lavinia of the 10th. That is going to freeze our board pretty much. So much for going wide on them. Drawing a Somberwall Beastmaster, which could be useful if we start swinging in, because it will give our creatures Death Touch. We're not swinging in this turn, so might as well try and get closer to some answers. So let's play Life's Legacy. We can sacrifice a horse to do this. This will trigger the life gain for the Sunmare also. Alright, get into Temple of the False God, the land that's cool to hate. I think we're best going for Emeria's Call. If we're not going to be able to go wide on them, then we should try and fly over the top, so getting some angels to populate sounds like a good idea. Hello all, a quick editor's note here. Emeria's Call actually gives non-angel creatures indestructible until the end of your next turn. I always thought that that last ability, that last effect on the sorcery was really weird. I thought that it said until the end of this turn non-angels have indestructible, which in all honesty would be fairly useless unless you're about to swing in this turn, but the angels don't come in with haste. So I always thought it was weird, but it is until your next turn. So what I probably should have done here, if I'd noticed that, is gone for the Emeria's Call, made everything indestructible, and then gone for the Martial Coup that we have in hand in an attempt to wipe my opponent's board. Obviously, ours wouldn't be wiped because our stuff would be indestructible. Anyway, didn't spot that line of play here, but that's probably what I should have done. So the angel tokens come in from the Emeria's Call, and we will go for the Trudge Garden. Whenever we gain life, we can pay 2 to get a 4/4 beast. That goes infinite for infinite life with Ashnod's Altar, and you get infinite tokens with token doublers as well. Don't have that combo in this deck because it's just supposed to be a casual paper game. We see Deadeye Navigator now. They're down to 3 cards at least. So we are actually getting somewhere. It's the first time I've seen them south of 7 cards in hand this game. But unfortunately managing to soulbond that onto the Lavinia. So Lavinia getting flickered, and it's going to freeze down our board yet again. And then swinging in with the Ephara. I'm just noticing here actually that our Crested Sunmare is indestructible from the Emeria's Angel Sorcery. I didn't realise that it gives you indestructible until your next turn. So, well, anyway, we can make use of that here by blocking the Ephara. Crested Sunmare at 5 CMC as opposed to 4, so does not get detained by Lavinia. So we can't activate the Trostani. During the main phase we might as well go for Momentous Fall. Can't make use of the horse anyway, so we'll sacrifice one of those. And it's just going to be replaced thanks to the life gain on Momentous Fall. Okay, drew into some decent stuff there in Shamanic Revelation. Nissa's okay. The Beast Within could be really useful there. Let's throw down the Yavimaya, make all of our stuff into forests. And then I think we might still be on a go wide plan whilst we think about dealing with the Lavinia. So let's play out the Somberwald Beastmaster. This will trigger life gain for more horses yet again. And then we'll play out Nissa, Voice of Zendikar as well so that we can put plus counters on all of our stuff. We will go for the minus on her straight away. Okay, and going for the Deadeye Navigator Flicker with Lavinia now. I remember when people were calling for the ban of Deadeye Navigator, and it's because they didn't know how to play around it, so that was another example of MTG hysteria. What you do with Deadeye Navigator, and what we're going to try here, once the Soul Bond trigger is on the stack, so Lavinia has left play and re-entered play here. Soul Bond goes on the stack from Deadeye Navigator. Whilst it's on the stack and before it resolves, they can't flicker with either of the creatures to protect them. Alright, excellent. And that is how you deal with Deadeye Navigator. We're going back a few years, people complaining about that back in the day, but yeah, that's how you deal with it if you're ever struggling with it in your meta. Wait for the Soul Bond trigger to go on the stack, and then don't let it resolve and blow it up. Regardless, the Lavinia does still resolve there, but hopefully that will be the last time that Lavinia resolves against us. I'm surprised to say it, but we're actually looking hopeful here. Crested Sunmare once again triggering at the end of the turn. That brings a horse in and gains us life, which triggers the Trudge Garden, so I'm actually going to pay into it for the first time here. We'll get ourselves a 4/4 beast. Aetherling being made unblockable here, and they're going to take out the Nissa. Not really bothered about that, in all honesty. Alright, and there we are. We mentioned it before. There's Supreme Verdict. So I'm going to use Sundering Growth to blow something up here and populate. Oh, actually. Oh, God. Oh, I didn't think that through. I literally just said that I've held up Trostani. Oh, I've just wasted a removal spell for no reason whatsoever. My thought process here is that I'm trying to get as many indestructible horses into play as possible, and we are going to populate here. But we can just do that with our commander. Oh, I really hope that that doesn't bite me. Anyway, everything getting blown up apart from the horses here. They are no longer indestructible thanks to the Crested Sunmare finally going down. They play Cloudkin Seer, which is more card draw on a flyer. And wouldn't you know it, immediately punished there is a Ghostly Prison. Why did I just do that Sundering Growth? There was no need to do that whatsoever. That's really annoying. That might cost me the game. Aetherling coming back into play as well. And our opponent's still at 4 cards in hand. They might still have Ether Eyes and things like that. Well, I think it's just a case of turning as much in sideways as possible and just paying into the Ghostly Prison. Yeah, we shouldn't be having to pay into Ghostly Prison at all, but yeah, that was a really stupid mistake. Could be playing into Mass Bounce like Evacuation or something like that here, but we'll force our opponent to use it either way. And they do have something here. Alright, that's a Draining Whelk, so they're not going to be countering anything with that at least. Had to spend 16 mana in order to swing through here. The Ephara does get animated thanks to the Draining Whelk, and it looks like they're just making a bunch of blocks here, so they're going to lose creatures. Flickering away the Aetherling as protection, this is where the Trample would have been relevant. That deanimates Ephara as well, so once again Trample would have been relevant there as well. And we do manage to get them down to 6, 3 cards in hand for them. We might still be able to do this. Let's just throw down this Talisman and pass. They get Fairy Artisans into play. We are not going to play any more creatures into that thing because that just means more blockers for them. And just passing at that, I'm very dubious. They're down to 5 life thanks to cracking a Scalding Tarn. Alright, but surprisingly managing to get that one done. Yeah, that's... I'm really kicking myself over that wasting the removal spell and then they get down a Ghostly Prison straight away. But that, once again, ladies and germs, is why you don't quit. How many times have I told you? The number of times this was a 2.5 hour game and it was just supposed to be a fun, casual game with my paper deck. And the number of times I wanted to quit during this game because the Ephara player was just controlling us all to hell. But we don't quit on this channel and we managed to pull out a victory regardless. So hopefully you all enjoyed this revisit to Trostani. I'm hoping to play this game in paper and maybe you'll see a paper gameplay of my Trostani deck at some point in the near future. So hopefully you all look forward to that. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.